This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting for the Real News Network from Montreal, Canada. As the Real News reported last month, the Wet'suwet'en Indigenous people of northern British Columbia and Canada have established checkpoints on their land to prevent pipeline company TransCanada from building a gas pipeline across their territory. The Wet'suwet'en people have never signed treaties with Canada or otherwise ceded their lands, a fact confirmed by Canada's own Supreme Court in 1997 in a landmark decision known as Delgamuukw. Several days ago, members of the Aboriginal Police Liaison of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police met with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and indicated that specially trained tactical forces would be deployed to forcibly remove Wet'suwet'en people from sovereign Wet'suwet'en territory. On Monday, January 7th, indeed, armed police, some dressed in camouflage fatigues, broke down homemade barriers at a checkpoint on unceded Wet'suwet'en territory and arrested 14 land defenders. Following the arrests, and as reported by APTN News, hereditary Wet'suwet'en leaders pledged to keep fighting. Chief Madik, hereditary leader of the Gidmitin clan, declared that we may have lost this battle, but not the war. Upon learning of the arrests, civil society organizations from across Canada called for a series of cross-country protests in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en people and for the purpose of denouncing the Trudeau government's heavy-handed tactics on the sovereign land of the Wet'suwet'en. Over 50 such protests took place across Canada on January 8th. For the Real News, I attended one such protest in Montreal, outside the riding office of the Canadian Prime Minister himself, Justin Trudeau. During the protest, I spoke to longtime activist Gary Engler, one of the protesters, about his reasons for supporting the struggle of the Wet'suwet'en people.
So please tell us your name and where you're from.
Gary Engler, and I'm kind of living in Saskatchewan and in Quebec, half and half.
And originally, or at least for a long time, you were from the West Coast, from Vancouver and British Columbia.
I lived most of my life in Vancouver until quite recently.
And so you were talking a moment ago about the differences from a legal perspective between British Columbia and the rest of Canada when it comes to the status of the Indigenous peoples. Could you explain what you were talking about there?
Yeah, well, in British Columbia, except for a very small part of the province, First Nations people never signed treaties, and that created a legal situation that basically court cases lasted for, 40, 50 years, and it's still in the process of being settled. But I believe in the early 2000s or late 1990s, the Supreme Court of Canada did decide in the Delgamuukw decision that the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en people had never ceded sovereignty over their land, and that they still were a sovereign people, essentially. And now what exactly that means is still in the process of being defined legally in British Columbia. So it's a very unique situation.
And why did you come out here today?
Well, I just think that Canada has been so rotten to its original people for so long. It's necessary for anybody with a conscience to support people who are trying to say, this is our land, we've been here for thousands of years, and we have rights, and you can't just take it away from us whenever you want to. I mean, that's a pretty fundamental problem that First Nations face, and anybody with good conscience should be supporting them.
On January 9th, following the protest in Montreal, the Prime Minister conducted a town hall in British Columbia where he tried to reassure a rather skeptical audience of his commitment to Indigenous rights.
But we are making significant progress right now in self-governance, in new relationships, in support that is moving in the right direction. On the other side of things, there is a question of services. There's still far too many Indigenous communities in this country that are existing under boil water advisories, that are not having schools to go to, not getting parity in terms of the money we invest in young people in non-Indigenous communities versus Indigenous communities.
Everything you benefit from our oppression and our suffering. You are afraid to lose your comfort.
No, I'm not, Tilly. I am ready to walk in partnership with you and building the future. And that was what we have been doing over the past 3 years in renewing this relationship. I can understand your impatience.
Why are they in our face? Why are you not putting those officers up to protect us? You're protecting a dirty pipeline, and that is not honorable.
This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting for The Real News from Montreal, Canada.